To say our sense of success and value is tested in times of turbulence would be an understatement. But today's guest says success isn't about the race to the top or having to prove you're good enough. It's about carving out a path of personal discoveries and career accomplishments without focusing on promotions, prestige, or status. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk with this author because if we're going to spend a third of our lives on the job, we might just need to reassess how we define success.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Dr. Alan Patterson is an organizational development consultant specializing in executive and leadership development. Dr. Patterson continues to ignore standard coaching methods, opting to pursue and lead clients down the path of meaningful careers. They're not only successful, but also rewarding. His new book is Burn Ladders, Build Bridges, Pursuing Work with Meaning and Purpose, and we're glad to have him with us. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Rob.
You bet. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, so let's dive right in. And with you, I want to start with your views on success. Because, okay, we're going to stop focusing on traditional measurements of success like promotions, prestige, and status. And we're going to turn that attention to personal discovery. But I, for one, fell into that trap when I was in corporate America. So let's come out of the gate and just unpack that for me a little bit.
You mean how do I define success?
Yeah, and how do we move ourselves? I'm your traditional zeroid. I worked for Xerox for many years. I was on that. I must get promoted. I must win awards, or I am unworthy. And you see things a different way. So when I say unpack it, deprogram people like me.
I got you. Okay, I'm gonna put on your deprogramming hat.
You got it.
I think we've all come out of that. Rob, and it's not just work, it's how we're educated. It's what we're taught is important. And I don't think it's malicious. I just don't think it's just what we accomplish. And that's what we've been led to believe. And when you get into work, I say it starts in education. And there's no doubt. I mean, what do you do in school? How do you know you're a good student? You get good grades. If you're lucky enough and you have the money, or your parents, mortgage a farm, you go to a school, you go to a good school. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? Does that make me a success? And I think once you run into a situation where you realize you're not getting the feedback or the promotion, the pay that you thought you wanted, it's like, well, wait a minute, I've done everything that I was told would make me successful. What the heck is going wrong? So, I mean, my personal situation is my personal situation. I mean, everybody's got a story. I think what has intrigued me, because I've worked with a lot of people, Rob, that are I want to say highly educated. That's a little, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but they're smart people. They work in big organizations and they have prestigious jobs. And around some things, they are totally clueless. And one of them is climbing the ladder is not what you think it is. It starts off like, well, my notion of success and the view of what my company has, a notion of success, are the same, but they're not. And what happens is the company is banking on you. I say they want the retail price of you. They want retail success with you. And to do that, we all get sucked into this. Well, more is better and longer titles are better. And my epiphany was, and part of it I'm sure is my age, but it's like, I don't know. I don't see a lot of people just really ecstatic about the work that they do. And so what I'm saying is, what else would motivate someone to do it? And it's not money. People that get stuck, they'll tell you. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I think I am. But look at all the psychology that's around how those rewards, those external rewards, really motivate people. They work. They just work up to a point. What makes a difference? You said it earlier. It's a success is finding those opportunities where it's a kick, where there's what do you want to call it? Joy, happiness. I mean, how far do you want to take it? But it's and how do you get that? And I think there is a very clear way on how that works. And it's
we're going to get to that. I want to get that clear way. But I want to tell you. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm verbose here, so you knock me back. You overtalk that.
But, no, you're making a good point, and you know, I was messing with you a little bit. My first years at Xerox, and that was the last corporation I worked for before I went into business for myself. I had the number 262 written down on a piece of paper. I put it in my pocket when I left Xerox, because I am a classic case, I think, of what you're describing. Without making my head too big or patting myself on the back, I was good at what I did. I was good at delivering seminars. So my reward was the number 262, 262 nights out on the road delivering seminars for Xerox, because I was good at it. And I became what I call out of balance, meaning, I was a corporate success, but I wasn't a family success. I wasn't a personal success, because that comes at a cost. And I think that's what you're nibbling at. Am I right?
I absolutely. I mean, the kind of epiphany I had is like, how do you define success? And then you get someone who's brilliant, like Clayton Christensen, who wrote about the innovator's dilemma and some real heavy business books, ends up saying, how will you measure your life? How will you measure your success? And it caused me to think, and you tell me if you agree with this, at some point they are one and the same. Mm-hmm. And going through the Xerox Beltline or whatever the organization was, it's like you're clawing your way through. How could you not? And it's only when you realize what a solo venture it is, and the people you're working with are really you're competing with, which it's not on an everyday basis, and it's not always at a huge cost, but buddy, you're on your own.
Yeah.
You're not trying to get 3 other people promoted.
Yeah. It's funny. I will not crowbar books into a conversation with an author who has a book. So I'm not even going to give you the title. But I had to search and struggle for the message that you're talking about. And every time I sign that book, I always write the same things. Keep it in balance. Keep it in balance. And for me, and this is where I want to lead you with my next question. To me, I only knew that there's the corporate ladder, and if a rung presents itself, grab the rung. And if another rung presents itself, grab the rung and climb. Where was it written? When you're high enough, let go of that rung, maybe drop back a rung. It's not instinctive.
It isn't instinctive, and it isn't written. As a matter of fact, the motivation is just the opposite. What we're told is, and this is especially if you're involved in sales, it's counterintuitive, and you go, wait a minute, I'm just wussing out on this. I mean, what we discover, what I think you've discovered, I've discovered, is it's not all about getting results. I mean, that's heresy in this day and age. What it is the extent to which you're able to engage with people that are interesting and doing something that's a personal kick. Right. That's what it's about. That's the way I see it. What if you make a lot of money? What if you discovered the fountain of youth? It's like, well, that's cool. Nobody's saying don't make money, but that's such a powerful image. I mean, you've got people, whether you're consciously or not clear, that you're actually pushing out of the way, and you're going to get there. And the other thing that is so blasphemous and so obvious today, because so much is this part of the Great Awakening, is the ladder can work for people like you and me because we're white men, but it doesn't work for everybody. It narrows pretty quickly, and say, well, it encourages thinking about your personal success. And what I'm saying is the key is really, and this is the leadership side, but it's the way we define leadership. At least I have, and everybody I think that's pretty good at leadership development. It's how do you create the conditions for other people to succeed? So what you did? How many days? 241?
262 was
like
my
I
number.
said, I got to write it down. 262. And if somebody did 263, it's like, oh, what do you got to go back to zero and try next year? You're going to see if you can top it. I think that when you realize that having impact and helping people find meaning, as corny as that may sound, it is I mean, how many of those 262 days could you say were upbeat? For you, maybe the majority of them, but
They were, Alan, they were. It was at a cost to my family. And I was on a circuit with a lot of professional speakers. And one by one, I started noticing broken blood vessels on the nose from the alcohol. And I started hearing about the townhouse that they were now living in as they were working their way through their divorces. Right. And I'm grateful to my wife who saved me, because, as I said, my instinct was I'm the greatest husband and dad in the world. I'm a great provider and I love what I do. Yeah. But it was at a cost. And your book wasn't out yet.
Yeah, well, I was probably thinking about, what's so ironic, Rob, and this just kind of hit me as I was writing. And this is very true in the United States. We seem to be consumed with this. I think so. I've read less so than Europeans and also people from Asia Pacific. Is we make a big deal about what people do for a living. And that's what we say. What do you do for a living? Now, I was laughing about this yesterday. You don't say, well, what do you do for a dime? You say, well, what do you do? I mean, that's how we're gauging. Right. Unconsciously, that's how we're engaging what we do. I think doing is important. I think what you do is important, and it is 100% relative. Who gauges importance? You do.
Right.
I'm just saying, I think we're working in situations where you're helping other people be successful. It has a very spiritual and religious connotation about it. And you know what? I really, really, really believe it.
Yeah, Alan, I'm proving it to you. So for our listeners, you can't see it, but I'm holding it up so Alan can see it. I actually have something on my desk that said we weren't put on this earth to make a living. We were put on this earth to make a difference. And look, I could put a lot up in my office, but that's the one that stares me right in the face, because I got caught up in making a living and lost focus on making a difference in my children and my friends and my wife. There's where the difference was coming from. And my volunteer activities and things that I was doing for other people. No, I learned how to make money. And that's what I was doing. And I felt I was, an all-star dad. Hey, I was at the bus stop when I wasn't traveling. That's pretty good. And that's, that's what the addiction, that's what the drug does to you. But it's a false lead.
It is.
Yep. Now, the book is called Burn Ladders, Build Bridges, Pursuing Work with Meaning and Purpose. And folks, I'm telling you, I'm excited about this book because, as you can hear, I've lived, as so many of you all have, what we're talking about here. So let's get into this Ladderburner thing. Okay. You're right about Ladderburner. Yeah. What is it, and how did you come up with this concept?
Well, everybody thinks people like it, I think, because it sounds naughty. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna, instead of going out in school and smoking in the boys' room, I'm gonna go out and burn a ladder. Here's how it happened. I was talking to someone 4 or 5 years ago that was helping me look at some marketing on the internet, and I was asked, "What is your value proposition?" And it's like, I don't know what that. I talk about that myself. It's like I don't have any I can't swear. I don't have any idea. No clue. I don't know what that means. And so the person asked the question again. Well, let me ask you this. Who's the dragon that you're slaying for your clients? I said, that one is easy. Instantaneously, I said the corporate ladder. And then it was, well, then it's about burning ladders. It's about just doing away with ladders. And what does that mean? I was talking to a colleague this morning. I want people to understand, that first of all, climbing the ladder is not the only way to success. You've said it in many different ways, and there are many reasons why. There are many different ways. One, which is huge, is the balance issue. And I say, okay, everybody wants to diss millennials and now Gen Zs and say, oh, they don't want to work hard. They want to have work-life balance. Excuse me, when did that become such a bad thing?
Right.
Oh, they don't want to work hard.
I've spoken from all the people who've been climbing this ladder going, what the heck have I been doing?
Right. What nobody told me. But what I realized is that, for lack of a better way, and I would love it if you or one of your listeners has a better way to describe it than mindset, but it is a change in mindset. And that is, it's not about personal achievement of what you accomplish personally. It's about your ability to build relationships and help other people succeed. That's build the bridge.
Right.
So Jenny, who I work with, this morning we were talking about this. She said, well, you know what? We say it's a change in mindset. That's where it begins. And I think that's true. But you know what this is like, professional speaker on the road, 262 days a year.
Oh, yeah.
I hope that's the record.
Well, yeah, no, I know. Well, here's the weird part. I left and my number went up just a tad. And then that's when I said, I think I can't blame Xerox anymore. I looked in the mirror. I went, it's that guy. But, to your point, Alan, I have to tell you that for those who are listening, it's a wonderful idea. It's almost a romantic idea, but it takes work. And it was difficult for me when I reduced my travel clubs, some of my perks got pulled back. Certain things I had to let go. And if I can tell you just a real fast story,
Absolutely.
I was waiting for a flight one time. This is when I knew I had achieved success in my new way. I burned that ladder in a sense. I was waiting for a flight. It canceled, and everybody lined up, and all the big flyers. There might have been 10 seats. They're all going there. So I'm used to being number 2, 3 on the board, maybe 1, right? I looked up, I went up, I said, what number am I? And she said, you're number 42. And I went, first my eyes opened up, and then, you know what? I had a big smile and went, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm number 42. I don't want to be number 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
That comes at the cost. That was the first time where I knew that my numbers were coming down, that it was getting where I wanted to go. But I'm just telling you, Alan, it shook, not that day. That made me feel good. It was hard to let go of that ladder. There's the thinking about it, and then there's the doing it.
Well, that's the thing. And so I firmly believe this, and I need a lot of help speaking succinctly and making this point, Rob. And that is, to say you're going to change your mindset, it's like, I don't know. It's either got to be an aha thing. It just like, it has to grab you like you're number 42. So right. That there's an emotional reaction around it. Or I don't think there's a logical way to get into it. I'm not going to convince you through fact that I mean, because I've got some of this stuff listed in the book. Let's just call it stuff. It's like, mental health issues are up. Oh, well, there's a shock. People are quitting their jobs. Okay, well, tell me something that I don't know. But Gallup tells you that the level of people that feel engaged in their jobs is 35%. Excuse me? You got 65% of people at work saying that they're not fully engaged. How much does that cost? It's trillions. I don't know what the figure is. I should. That would add to my credibility, right? If I could tell you all that. Yeah. But the point is, it is so obvious when you step back from it and say, what's the difference? And right. I think you've got a great example of what the difference is. So it's not it's not just mindset a long preamble. It is really, thanks to my colleague Jenny, that said, it really is about structure. It's not the structure of the ladder. It's the structure of the bridge.
Oh, okay.
How's that?
That's real good.
How's that? Because that's something we can relate to. It's like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about it.
That goes on a mug, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm your marketing manager now. That goes on a mug. That goes on a mouse pad. That goes somewhere where people can see it.
Yeah.
Don't hide that.
Yeah. No, but think about it. What a cool way to say that's, and because I think that's really what it means to reorient people. Well, what if somebody passes me? What if I meet number 263? I don't know. Shake that person's hand, because you're off that trend.
Oh, I'll send that person some flowers. I don't want to be number two, the number one guy.
Right.
Alan, you're talking to a sales guy. That's what I write about and speak about. And we have a saying in sales that when you look at a customer, their instinct is people don't fix small problems, they fix big ones. Okay. And so just so you know, and for the people who are listening, the trigger point is usually something somewhat catastrophic. It's somewhat major. When you get a book like Alan's, and when you hear an author like Alan talk, what we're trying to do at this moment right now is we can wait for the catastrophe to happen, or we can have a conversation about it. And I, for one, would much rather have the conversation. So, Alan, to your point, or to anyone's point, maybe somebody's listening who knows somebody who is out of balance. Don't wait for the big problem to occur. The magic words are not what is, but what happens if. Right. And that will open up a conversation to, what happens if you do have this type of issue with that? We don't have to wait. I always say we don't have to wait for somebody to fall off a motorcycle to have a conversation about it. I know you'll give up the bike once you fall. Right. I'd rather you give it up before you fall. Well, and that's what a book like yours is trying to do.
Well, I appreciate that, because that's the point. It's like, just take the churn that's created by mergers and acquisitions, and do I have a job, and how many, I'm a CFO. Well, guess what? You could be out of work because companies don't need 2 CFOs, and so on and so forth. And you go through all this stuff, and when you realize that if it's about building relationships, you're going to have a job. You're going to find a job. And I don't say that lightheartedly. It's like, and for you are what I will refer to as a jumper. You jumped. Many people get pushed off.
Right.
You jumped. I don't know what the epiphany was. But there's a story behind what you did. Yeah. Hopefully you didn't get hurt.
No. It was a good jump.
You didn't have to start over. It's like, okay, baby, I'm going out. And that's not everybody does that. I don't think I think it's a great alternative.
Yeah.
But I think, one message here is a shameless plug, is the driving force behind this for me, Rob, is I can't believe that people don't think this way. It's like, there's only one person who cares about your career development. Only one. And I will tell you, it's not your mother, and it's not your significant other. It's you. And if you think someone else is looking out for your best interest, not that there aren't good people, good organizations, great cultures. There's some dynamite places to work. There's some fabulous people in ladder climbing at Xerox, at a ladder climb. Phenomenal. One of a kind. You think they have your best interest at heart? They're not wishing you ill. The person that thinks most about career is you. So you've got to take control. Yeah. Burn the ladder, build the bridge.
Love it. And you talk about some common myths about becoming a ladder burner. Give me a couple of them.
Well, the biggest one, I think, is the myth that many people think that a good job should speak for itself.
Hmm.
And I say, once you get beyond, I don't know, did you start off in Xerox? Were you in sales?
I started out as an insurance salesman for the New York Life Insurance Company. So I started out as a salesman, then
Okay.
became a trainer. And then I wanted to be a trainer for Xerox, but I went back into sales. So with Xerox, it was sales, then training.
Yeah. So it's like, well, you get beyond, okay, now I'm in sales. I'm a junior salesperson. I'm a adolescent salesperson. I'm a bar mitzvah salesperson. It's like, okay, we're just going to climb up this. Now I'm a senior salesperson. And then something happens when you realize that just by doing what you think is your job is not what's going to get you promoted. Well, what is that then, Dr. Patterson? It's not your performance, it's the judgment of your performance. Because you could have the highest, you could have 265 days on the road, you could have the best reviews, you could have the most sales that come out of it and still not get the job. And you say, well, what's that about? Well, that's just how it works. People make judgments, and many people that are making judgments about you may not even know you. They may have heard about you. So in terms of myths, I think that this idea of automatic promotions, or I just have to work hard, I think once people understand, they want to, there's a whole mythology around politics are bad. And I say, well, let me ask you something. Would you know this, you taught me this, and I don't even know, we never met, but you taught me this. It's like, if I'm not talking to a decision maker, I'm not talking to the right person. Well, people that aren't in sales, that's not how scientists think. It's like, oh, well, that's political. Oh, it's political. What, you need more money? You want to try a different kind of experiment? You want to sell your ideas? Excuse me, you're going to have to find out who can say yes. Yeah. So like it or don't like it. So it's not so much that people, it's not so much about politics to me as it is about making decisions. Because back to the bridge, there are people you need to be visible and known to. You don't have to go out and drink beer with all these people. That's not the goal. But from this point forward, if I have a question or you have a question, I'm going to take your email or call, and you're going to take my email or call. Why? Because we spent 45 minutes together. Think about it. And it's like, that's how it happens. So why wouldn't we make that kind of investment in each other? Well, it's manipulation. No, manipulation is making people do something that's not in their best interest. This isn't manipulation.
Right.
This is again, Rob, you taught me this, you and your colleagues. This is about persuasion. This is about selling your ideas. This is about getting buy-in. It's not a one-shot deal. And that is one of that and the whole set of communication skills, as far as I'm concerned, is there's no magic bullet. These are just the basic skills, and it's not, that has nothing to do with climbing the ladder. What that does is really get into the issue of judgment. Oh, maybe I should be in front of people making these decisions. Maybe I should be visible. Do I need to be sucking up to them? This isn't about sucking up. This is about being comfortable knowing that this is how that particular game is played.
Right. No, and you're bringing up some really great points. One I'll touch on quickly, which is when you just dropped off. I always in my 20s and into my 30s, I used to have this saying, on my tombstone. You're in trouble when somebody's talking about the tombstone already, but on my tombstone, they'll write, this guy was no political pawn. He didn't play those political games. I think everybody sees it as black and white. If I even utter the word politics, I'm somehow copying out. It's being aware that, and I love what you said. I guess they do both come together. It's being aware that how you mesh with that team and how you work with others and how you carry yourself
Yeah.
has a lot to do with
Oh,
your success. We're all focused on, yeah, but I sold more than anybody else. That's
yeah.
what a salesman thinks. And or maybe I was able to achieve this with my group higher than any other team. Perhaps you keep looking at that number. We're looking at how people react to you and how you react with management. And again, where's that taught in college? Where are we teaching that?
We're not. You're
We're
lucky.
not.
We're not. It's if you're lucky enough to have a good boss. That's the way I say it,
Yeah,
especially early in your career.
right.
But that's the jackpot. I think if you have someone that takes an interest in you, and those folks are few and far between. I don't say that my book is the will sell more copies than the dictionary if people still buy dictionaries. I don't think
It
that's
will
not,
sell more copies than a dictionary, I promise.
okay. Well,
Because I don't
that's
think we're buying
I,
dictionaries.
okay. Yeah, I didn't want to say the Bible because that's sacrilegious, and I don't want to do that. But what I'm saying is, to your point earlier,
Yeah.
it's about these conversations. That's what you want to do. You want to be talking about this. It's like, because when people get stuck, that's kind of when you see it. But there are a lot of people with much more experience and have studied this and researched it. And they say, you talk to people, those folks may not be the best people to talk to about where you are and where you're headed, because they're going to try to help you and say, just hang in there. And, and it's like, hey, I got an idea. What if you were so fluent, you were so spontaneous, Mr. Jolis? What if you were an actor or a podcaster or an entertainer? Because, am I right, to some extent? You're getting that.
Oh, you're more than right. You see, when I was in my 20s, I was an actor. I met my wife in a show. My son is a stand-up comedian. My daughter is a sketch comic.
Excuse me.
Runs in the blood. Good work, doctor. You nailed that one. And he did not know that into this interview.
Didn't I go out on a limb?
Yeah.
You smile and laugh way too much to think that you weren't. And that's one of the Ladderburner characteristics. They say Ladderburners really, they laugh, and they know how to laugh at themselves. And I also think, to have little quips with this, that being dumb is the new smart. It's the Columbos of the world that really have the capability of going in and asking dumb questions at a meeting that nobody else will ask, because they think that they're supposed to know this stuff. And it's like, oh, excuse me, Mr. CEO, I don't know what you mean by EBITDA or something. It's like,
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, now I'm going to be made fun of. And I'm saying, I don't know. Those questions and those answers the asking those questions are classic. You don't have any idea what you're doing for other people when you ask questions, because the art of the conversation really is about what kinds of questions get asked and how well you listen, and the ability to speak at the level of people that you're working with. Now, where did you learn that? You learned it on the fly, not the fly. You learned it trial and error. You learned
where you learn it, Alan? Believe it or not, I wrote an article about this. You learn it at Starbucks. That's where you're authentic. That's where you're having a cup of coffee, right. A relaxed environment, and you're not thinking. When you wrote dumb. I'm going to change the word dumb question and say curious question. And a curious question, right? Better. That I may very well know the answer to. That's how dumb I am. Okay. Yeah, but I'm going to let you paint the picture. And I even encourage people when they're sitting down, go ahead and look somebody in the eye and say, my goal today is I want to ask you questions nobody's ever asked you. And that means going deeper. But that when we're authentic, we're curious.
You've given me something better to think about, because I even had one of my colleagues that reviewed the book for me, and she was saying, I don't know what you mean by dumb questions, but that's something too in terms of education. See, I think that's been engineered out,
right?
Achievement, because achievement is getting results, but we're the best scientists. Years ago, when Bell Labs was a big deal, and that was kind of the epicenter of research, there was a study that was done that was like, well, who were the best scientists? You know who they were? And this was all reputational. You know who they were?
Who?
The best teachers.
Hmm.
That's what people said. The ones that would spend time with me to help me think something through, interested in what I'm doing. The best teachers. Those were the best scientists.
That's
And it's
interesting.
like, yeah, it's not who went to Stanford, who went to Caltech, who went to. So
Well, I'll flip it on you, Alan. You know who? And I don't believe I've ever said this out loud, but when I conduct training and I work with salespeople, the most natural salespeople, in other words, the best salespeople who have never sold, two professions. One, typically reporters, because they're used to asking questions that put people at ease so they can get at the tougher questions.
right,
That if they lead with those, no one's going to answer them.
right.
And the other are nurses. Nurses,
Really?
the doctor comes in, looks at the clipboard and says, we got to get this patient up, get up. And it hurts. Okay, well, good luck, nurse. But the nurse is the one that creates trust. The nurse is the one where in the end, in the end, it's the patient's idea. In the end, it's they believe in that nurse. That most people who come out have had a serious situation, have had a good nurse. They'll tell you they'll never forget that nurse. And the nurses were able to move mountains.
What a great!
They just don't know they're doing it.
What a great point. That's great.
Yeah. Well, see, we call those people unconscious competence, right? They don't even know that they're doing it right. They're like natural athletes. And I think that's what we're doing.
No, you're absolutely right. What I say, we say, lots of people say, well, it's baby steps. Yeah, but it's not baby steps of just anything.
Right.
It's to a greater end. And it's not necessarily, linear is not the goal.
Right. Right.
So when you say, well, I can only define success in a linear way. No, I can only think in a linear way. Well, that's problematic, but a lot of people are coming out of that mindset and putting a premium on this, is it rational decision-making or is it creativity? I don't know. Why are they mutually exclusive?
Right.
And I like to talk about it, Rob, it's not just the decision making. I would love to get the word discernment, meaning, because people will talk about it, but they often talk about it in a religious sense. But it is, well, what does that mean? What's the implication of that? Now I think we're getting, like you talk about digging deep. That's the kind of stuff that really, I think is just cool as hell. Yeah. When you have people that have the creativity. Let me ask you a question. Whether I know the answer or not, you can't BS people. You can't, but it's like, I'm curious. It's like, how do you get from selling insurance to, I'm sure there's, and then it's like, so what does this mean that you're doing what you're doing now? That's an easy one, because what I can do is ask you to tell me about that transition. It's that simple. Right. Just simple. Yeah. And there's the basis for a relationship.
Yeah. But it all starts with trust. And the ironic thing is we're trying to create change here. We're trying to help people. That's why I love your book. And yet instinctively, again, our patient is waiting for the number 262 to be gotten. You know what? 150 is too many.
Right. But 98.6 is what we're looking
for. But like that nurse or like that reporter, we can't just jump on the problem. People will resist that. What we can do is be curious, as you're saying. And for me, for instance, why don't you just tell me about the kids? How many do you have? What are their ages? What kind of things do you like doing with them? Okay. You see where we're starting to move to. Then I earn the right to ask, what sort of challenges does this amount of travel present to what you just told me? And now we're engaged.
Now we're off and running. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what it's not a mystery. And you're right. You can't jump in and ask somebody, well, tell me what your biggest challenge is or what
How
keeps
bad is it traveling all that much? You think you see most people know they have a problem. It's like a cigarette smoker. Most cigarette smokers aren't unaware that it isn't the healthiest thing to do. But
right?
so far they feel pretty good and they don't have a cough and
That's
et
right.
cetera.
Right. Well,
You see
well,
where I'm
that's your,
going.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm a big interrupter. That's your point about, okay, how do you want to do this? You want to wait till you're on a dolly being wheeled in for an operation, or do you want to do it while you're still standing up
Right.
and realize you don't have to stand around at the
Yeah.
bottom of the ladder and wait for somebody to leave or die
Yeah.
to be successful, which is what a lot of people do. I can't move up.
Right.
So you see a lot of people, one sees a lot of people, they'll go work at a different organization. I saw this a lot, like in finance and accounting. I worked with a lot of folks in that field, and it just sticks out. It's like, okay, well, they go work someplace else. They're a senior analyst or something. They go work somewhere else, and they come back. They could be an accounting manager.
Right.
Whereas they couldn't have done that where they were because somebody had that spot and they can't take it. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the only thing you're looking to do.
Right. Makes sense. All right, we gotta, there's some pocket-sized pep talk. This is I can't let this guest go because it's to me, it sounds like a wonderful book. It is a wonderful book. But this is different than most books. This book has the potential to really save people. And that's why it means a lot to me to be able to get Alan to be able to share this with us. Alan, last question from me, and I'm just this is me being curious in terms of your mentors. What kind of mentors have you had that sort of helped you begin to find your way through this?
The most impactful person was the dean of the School of Education at Boston University when I was working on my doctorate, Bob Dentler. And so I was still in graduate school. I mean, I was working, I taught, no, I hadn't started teaching then, but he had he was brilliant sociologist, and his attitude was, in essence, it's like, you want a doctorate? Let me tell you something. Just pick a friggin' topic and write your dissertation and get the hell out of here. He taught, there are things that I remember the exact conversation about how people interact. That was his thing, and what you can take from that. So it was, sitting at the knee of a really bright, smart, engaging person. He, in the late 60s and early 70s, throughout the 70s, he was one of the people that the Justice Department used to go into places. I grew up in North Carolina, to go into North Carolina or Chicago or Philadelphia, where the school systems were clearly inequitable, to go in, and when the court took them over, they turned them over to him and have him do it. So I would say, of all the people that I think about, he's the one. My dad was a big influence too.
Yeah, as was mine, but good. We got a nice shout out there.
Okay.
Burn ladders, build bridges, pursuing work with meaning and purpose. Folks, I want you to get that book. I'm sure we can find it in Amazon or any online store. Isn't that correct, Doctor?
Of course.
Of course.
Amazon knows everything about you. So
That's good. But I always like to think that the Pocket Sized Pep Talk family understands that we don't just buy books. That's half of it. One of the kindest things we can do is write a nice review on that book. So first you're going to have to buy it, then you're going to read it, and then you're going to write a review on it. And then once you're done reading it, you're going to get some other people to read this, because it doesn't have to be the patient. It's the families that are affected a lot by the people that Alan is trying to help here. So real important that we keep an eye on this book. Let's pick up those numbers on Amazon and get it rolling. Alan, how do people get a hold of you?
Dr. AlanPatterson.com, or which will take you, if you need an email, it's trouble@ladderburners.com.
Listen, there's a happy little email address.
I'm pretty proud of that, Rob.
Okay.
DrAlanPatterson.com.
Good. You bet. Okay, good. Listen, Alan, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, as if on cue a few times. We had a big old storm blow through DC while we had this conversation. So there was a few lightning strikes while you were talking. I don't think they came through, but I was thinking, this really is an important message. There's lightning going off around here.
That's right. This guy knows somebody big.
That's right. You better listen to this guy. Any case, I'm so grateful you spent some time with us, and it's just been a pleasure getting to know you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
I appreciate it. It's been a thrill for me as well, Rob.
Wonderful. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, folks. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.